I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Public Safety, Civil Rights, Emergency Management Committee meeting. It is August 9th, 2017. I'm Councilmember Blong Yang. I'm the chair of this committee. With me today are Councilmembers Reich, Councilmember Gordon, Councilmember Quincy, and Council President Johnson, and I believe Councilmember Palmisano will be joining us in a little bit. Also joining us is Councilmember Fry, who is not a member of this committee, but thank you for being here, Councilmember Fry. To begin with, we have two consent items, and then we have the public hearing for which I think everyone is here for. With regards to the consent items, I'm going to do a presentation first. This is a presentation that we've done pretty much every year since I've been here, and this is with the fire chief and a representative from Centerpoint. So please come on up. Are we on? Okay, great. Chief, I'm just going to let you take it from here, okay? Go ahead, Chief.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the fire department, I'm very pleased to be here again today this year with our collaborative partners in Centerpoint Energy. Over the past years, they've given us very kind donations for us to use in different community projects that we're working on. I know this year they're going to present us another check for something that's very special to us, and that's we have tracking equipment on three of our apparatus that will track folks who have cognitive issues. In other words, we have young kids who are autistic, and we have maybe adults who have a tendency to wander. Once we have, they have little devices, little transmitting devices that can be put on the person's wrist. Looks like a watch almost. And if they wander, then they can report those, and our crews can come out with our tracking device and help locate those very quickly. So it's really, really important. It's a really important donation to us because, quite frankly, those transmitting devices are fairly expensive. So what we're going to use this money for is to offset the cost for those who are a little bit challenged with purchasing that equipment. So I think it's going to be something that's going to be very useful, and I really appreciate your collaborative partnership we had over the years. I'd like to introduce Doug Boudreau from Centerpoint Energy.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Since 2003, Centerpoint Energy has contributed about $1.5 million, which has funded about 775 projects across our footprint. And this community partnership with the cities that we serve helps us keep engaged and in touch with our emergency responders, and we'd just like to continue that partnership. And we're going to issue a check for $2,500 towards your safety net program. So, thank you.
Doug, thank you, and thank you to Centerpoint. And this is the third item on the agenda. All right, so we're going to continue with the meeting, and we will dispose of the consent items first, and then we will address the public hearing last. But I was just informed that my colleague, Councilmember Palmisano, will not be joining us here today. I believe she is out of the country, so she will be back soon, I hope. And, I do want to just begin by just saying that we have 5 council members from this committee, and so we have a quorum, and we can do the business of this committee. I'm going to address the consent items. Item number 2 is a grant from the Minnesota Justice Foundation for participation in the summer law clerk program for the Civil Rights Department. The third item is a 2017 community partnership grant from Centerpoint Energy for tracking bracelets, of which we did the presentation for. Any questions on those 2 consent items? Right, seeing none, I will move both those items for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to the public hearing, which is the appointment of the chief of police for the Minneapolis Police Department. And let me just start by just saying that we will start this public hearing first and foremost by acknowledging the mayor. She's here, and she's going to present her nominee. And then after that, we will have the nominee or the appointment give a short speech or presentation, probably about 5 minutes. But if you want to go a little bit over, we'll let you do that. And then after that, we will open up the public hearing, and we'll kind of go from there. So with that being said, Madam Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks to you and to the members of the committee for allowing me to speak today and for holding this public hearing. That's the next step in the confirmation for Acting Chief Arredondo as Chief of Police. And thank you to everybody who has come here today to offer your testimony for this public hearing. We know him as Rondo, and I nominated him because I believe the MPD needs clear direction and forward-thinking leadership right now. Minneapolis residents and officers alike deserve a strong and respected leader at MPD to establish trust, to establish direction, and a common sense of purpose throughout the entire department. And we have asked a great deal, and I have asked a great deal of the department over the last few years, and they have delivered. They have delivered more progress toward a 21st century model of policing than any other city in the country. And going forward, my expectations remain high. I continue to expect MPD to work every day to reduce crime in Minneapolis, particularly violent crime and especially gun crime. One of the best ways we can do that is by building community trust. I expect MPD to continue the trend of keeping positive community engagement at the center of its work. I expect to see stronger relationships with all Minneapolis communities, from leadership down to neighborhood officers. And I expect MPD to continue its thoughtful review of MPD policy regarding use of force, sanctity of life, training, any of the policies, all of them, the expectations remain high. And I expect body camera policy to be ingrained in the training and the work of every officer, because our tools are only as effective as we allow them to be. And I appreciate the changes that Acting Chief Arredondo has already made in the department. And I expect an MPD that works with the city, the mayor's office, and the community as partners in our public safety. And I think Medaria Arredondo is the person to deliver the kind of change that we continue to need and that our residents expect. For example, those changes in body camera policy that he announced, or the data dashboard that he is launching. At the same time, with his calm and steady demeanor and patient determination, he is also the right choice to ingrain into the department the many changes that we have already made in recent years. Rondo is the right choice for this task because he is himself an agent of change in a way that few others are or have been. Several years ago, he and other African-American officers sued the department for racial discrimination and won a settlement. He could have taken that settlement and walked away, but he did not. He stayed in the department because it is how he wanted to serve the people of Minneapolis, and because he believed in MPD's ability to do better. He also stayed to show other African-American officers that there is a path to success. And I don't know many people who would have done what he did or who have shown that kind of leadership. Indeed, Rondo has been with the department for 28 years. And before that, he was a Minneapolis kid, Minneapolis neighborhoods, Minneapolis schools, and now the Minneapolis Police Department. And he knows our great city well. And he believes in our potential to be more than great, as I do. So I have enjoyed working with Rondo for many years. And over that time have seen that he is a skilled communicator who is respected inside and outside the department. Indeed, I think our whole city has seen that in recent weeks. And he's got a long track record of building lasting relationships in neighborhoods across the entire city. and has earned the kind of trust that only comes from honest, genuine engagement with community. In a time when trust, relationships, and communications are more important than they have ever been, I can't imagine a better choice for the Minneapolis Police Department than Acting Chief Arredondo, and I am proud to have put his name forward for nomination and appointment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Acting Chief, or Rondo, if I can call you just formally or informally, feel free to take the microphone and say a few things. Introduce yourself.
Chair Yang, council members, I am Acting Chief Madera Arredondo of the Minneapolis Police Department. While I did not have any prepared remarks, I'd be remiss first and foremost to acknowledge the absolute how humbled I am and the honor to be in this position to lead forth this the Minneapolis Police Department. With that being said, too, I cannot stand before you here without acknowledging the sacrifices, the struggles that many who have come before me, my elders, family members, and community, those who have supported me, and those who have actually who have not supported me, I listen to them as well. I'm here today as a product of all those voices, with the main focus of trying to be the best person that I can, to be the best leader I can. I have garnered so much valuable insight from my community. I was asked the other day, why is it that I think that I've been able to be in the position that I have been for the past 28 years? And without even knowing it, it came back to this central point. Never in my 28 years have I not felt the support of my community. And that is incredibly, I'm honored for that. I will also say that I've been just as honored to have worked with some wonderful, talented men and women of this Minneapolis Police Department who've lent me their ear, who've lent me their advice, who've told me where my strengths are, who certainly let me know where my weaknesses are. And I've always tried to lead in a way that was built upon building a genuine and authentic relationship that has been fair and that has been accountable. I'm accountable to the 855 men and women of this department. I'm also accountable to the 400,000 men and women of our city. And so that is the way that I best know how to serve. And I do believe that somehow over the years, service, the word and what it means, has been diminished. I believe that if we are ever to have any greatness in life, it is through service to others. And that's what I will continue to do. That's what I will continue to impress upon and lead in a way that is exemplary to the men and women of this department, to work on collaborative partnerships with our community, and continue to hear at times the pain that many in our community are feeling. As I've said before, conflict and tension are not necessarily bad things. Oftentimes they come from voices that absolutely want us to do better. And I want to be in those spaces to make sure that we are doing the absolute best we can to lead this department forward. So I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I thank you for the consideration. And those who have different voices, who have different opinions, I want to meet and learn from and listen to them, because the ultimate goal is for us to have a police department where our community trusts us, where we are looked upon as being legitimate, where we are looked upon as being guardians in our community and one with our community. And so that is the direction I plan to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a few housekeeping things before we start this public hearing. Sign-up sheets for anyone who wants to speak. If you can just go to the city clerk's right at that corner there. If you can sign up there, that makes it easy for us. Outside of that, basically each speaker has 2 minutes. Usually my enforcer is Councilmember Palmisano, who isn't here today, so my aide Sean is here to keep some time. if and when you hear Sean say anything, that probably means that you got to finish up your sentence and just go sit. We're going to try to keep it on track as much as we can, just so that this goes as smoothly as possible, especially for speaker number 38 or something like that. They don't want to wait all that long. Outside of that, we have a room, which is the overflow room in 319. And 319, if you don't have a seat and you want to go over there and sit, that would be great. If not, feel free to stand. But at some point, I imagine the fire chief or the fire marshal or somebody's going to move some folks along. So that's not me. That's them. They're going to do their job. Outside of that, we have 3 interpreters, one in Somali, one in Spanish, and one in Hmong, who are in 319 for those who need language services. So just all of that stuff, just to let you all know that we're doing the best we can to make it as accommodating as possible for everyone. The bathrooms are right around the corner there, and right around there for the women's bathroom. So with that being said, we are going to open up this public hearing, and their first speaker is John Folta.
I'm John Folta. I live in Ward 12, Precinct, Precinct 4. I'm here to speak against the appointment of Mr. Arredondo. I first brought the attention to the community against police brutality. I brought him to their attention 5 years ago when my mother and I found ourselves being brutalized by the Nazis at the 3rd Precinct. My mother escaped the Nazis in her native Czechoslovakia, only to find them reappear at the 3rd Precinct. They entered her home without a warrant. She posed no threat to anyone. She was a 94-year-old woman in a wheelchair who had 3 heart attacks and 3 strokes. And I'm a disabled American veteran, also trained as a police officer and served as a police officer. When no one would listen to us, they were very skeptical. Well, how can the police be afraid of a 94-year-old woman and a disabled old man? And no one believed us until Justine Damon was murdered. Now people believe, and it's only by the grace of God that myself and my mother were not murdered by the police. Where was Mr. Arredondo when Al Flowers was brutalized, when Terrence Franklin was murdered, when Jamar Clark was murdered, when Philando Castile was murdered, when Dewey Null was murdered, when the gang strike force was terrorizing the city and confiscating people's property? Where was Mr. Arredondo? And only because of his relation to the people that were terrorizing me, I believe that he squashed the internal affairs report that I felt that I had filed, and I could never find any police reports regarding the matter. If you appoint this gentleman, you are just replacing Janae Harteau with the same thing, even something worse. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chuck Turchik. And before Mr. Turchik speaks, I just wanted to say, any of the speakers, when you come up to the mic, if you can introduce yourself and give us your address, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Chuck Turchik. I live at 2112 Portland Avenue. I have 4 observations. If people think this appointment is going to lead to radical changes in the Minneapolis Police Department, I think they're deluding themselves. Chief Harteau didn't pick Madera Arredondo as her assistant chief because they had fundamentally different outlooks on policing or on what changes were needed in the MPD. I don't want to say this is just a rearranging of the deck chairs on the Titanic, but this may well be not much more than a shifting of chairs, which may be all that is needed or all that you want. 2, at the executive committee meeting that considered this nomination, Councilmember Glidden said, and I quote, "A chief alone doesn't create a whole change for policing practices. I mean, it's a combination of things. It's public attention, sustained public attention. It is political engagement and political will, and it is having a chief that is there to engage with all those stakeholders and also be there for the department," unquote. In that spirit of engagement and political will, while the chief reports not to the city council but to the mayor, I think too often this committee has been reluctant to use its bully pulpit to hold the department and or the chief accountable. 3, both Jerry McAfee and Bob Kroll support this nomination. Who would have thunk? And 4, he's short and he's bald. What's not to like?
We can always count on Mr. Turchik for some humor. Thank you, Mr. Turchik. The third speaker is Buzzy Bone.
Good afternoon. My name is Buzzy Bond, and I live on 33rd and Fremont. Just a half a block from where gunshots were fired last Saturday night and two teenagers were wounded. I've lived on the north side for the vast majority of my life. And so I do know Rondo because he used to be a north side beat cop. I also do a lot of community work on the north side. There needs to be some changes. And because Rondo knows the community, because he knows what needs to happen on the north side, and to be quite honest, most of the time, with the exception of Barb and Blonde, I don't have a feeling that this city council gives a rat's ass what happens to the north side. I do believe that Rondo cares about the people who live in my community, both white and black. I think that he is the one person who can, because of his relationship with the community and because he's well-liked by the people in the department, that he is the one person who can bridge that gap so that we can truly have some community policing and do something about the crime that riddles my neighborhood on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is, I think it's Jerry McAfee.
Jerry McAfee, New Salem Missionary Baptist Church, as well as perhaps Representative Minnesota State Baptist Convention, Billy Russell, Bishop Howell, no doubt, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, and Bishop Fred Willis Washington of State Churches of God in Christ, to say that we fully and quickly and unequivocally support this appointment of Rondo. However, I would also put an addendum there that one of the things that also saddens me is that years ago, this city abandoned the mediation agreement. Over 10 years was put into that. They never got around to the 130-some things that they were to work on. And we are of the opinion that they'd have worked on them then, we wouldn't be having the problems now. Clyde is here. Many others are here who worked on that. And that if you only put Rondo in the same position and don't change that structure, then we'll be back here again for another chief. Don't just put him there, who we fully support, but I strongly suggest that you research that mediation agreement and get back into it willfully. It shouldn't have to be forced. You all know what we go through. I'll say this in closing. One of the greatest insults to us as a people is that when we've seen the response of many, what happened to our dear sister over South, we've been saying what's been happening to us for years, but no one seemed to have heard anything that's going on with us. No one seemed to have heard anything when we were dealing with the opioid drug addiction years ago. But now all of a sudden, when Caucasoids are going through it, now it's a major problem. If you all are elected, then you all elected to watch out for all of us. And when you turn a deaf ear to what we're saying, then it's just going to be chickens coming home to roost if you keep ignoring it. We're with Rondo, but I challenge you to put us back in the mediation because the union is too strong and many of y'all ain't going to want to fight it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brian Herron.
Pastor Brian Herron, Zion Baptist Church. Also assistant to President Billy Russell, President of the State Baptist Convention. Stand here in support of Rondo. But I want to echo what my pastor said. It does no good to put Rondo in as chief if he's not going to be supported. If we're not going to challenge the Federation and challenge the structure and the culture of policing, which is what needs to be changed, Policing must evolve, and the culture of policing must change. I believe Rondo can do that, but he can't do it alone. Don't put him in there and then after a year or two say, well, nothing's changed and he didn't do anything, because it's going to take longer than that. So I give my support to Rondo, but I also challenge you all to be supportive of him and to support the changes that he's going to need to make.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terrell Lewis.
Greetings, everyone. Terrell Lewis. I am speaking freely for myself, but I am in representation of the Minneapolis Youth Coordinating Board and our executive director and the group and all of our jurisdictional partners on behalf of young people and youth culture in this city, which are inheriting systems that definitely need to be reworked, but they're aware, and they also are working through the compounded and compressed trauma that is historic to these spaces that we all dwell in. But they don't always have the tools or means to articulate why their frustration is at this level, and their orientation to information and power is very, very different. What I would like to say in support of Rondo is he has continuously made himself available to young people per their request in an authentic and very realistic way, sharing with them both the pros and cons of choices and decisions that they make. But he also has just been present. And it's very important for our young people that are inheriting systems that aren't designed for their success to be able to relate with people that also deal with the energy of Minnesota Nice, the conflict avoidance, the microaggressions that happen in spaces when you don't even know how to name what it is that's happening, and you end up responding. Our young people are out here crying for help. They don't know how to speak the language in which, however it needs to be translated to those that are in positions to help the way that they need it oftentimes. So as a youth worker, I am proud to say thank you, Rondo, for what you've already done. Can't wait to see what you're going to do.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Joe Lewis.
Hello, it's Dr. Joy Lewis.
Joy.
It's okay, it's with an I. Yeah,
Sorry.
No problem. It is my honor to be here to get to speak in support of Chief Rondo's permanent, what I hope is going to be his permanent appointment. I am a community healer, have been they're really working with the community through lots of both present day and historic trauma. And I am very encouraged to have someone like Rondo who's been on the front lines with us. Our work began about 3 months before the death of Jamar Clark and has continued through today. And I'd like to just echo what many folks are saying. I have no really reservations at all about Rondo's ability to do this work. What I am concerned about is that to make sure that he has the full support, to have the autonomy and full authority to be able to do the work and to be able to make the kind of impact that is needed, because I am not unclear that one person cannot change the kind of reforms that need to happen. And we need to be really honest. It's a really hard road ahead. People are dying. People are scared. Folks are not calling 911. They don't know what to do. And we need to have someone in there who we know will accept our calls, who will connect with us, who will be out there in the front. He's not perfect. We don't expect for him to be, but we do need someone who is going to, in fact, be in collaboration with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mark Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman Yang. Mark Anderson, Barbara Schneider Foundation. I had to come over today to support a strong friend of the mental health community. I strongly support the appointment of Medaria Arredondo as Chief of Police of Minneapolis Police Department. I got to know Chief Arredondo during another difficult time in our city when We both served on the Police Community Relations Council. You've heard a little bit about this morning. From 2003 to 2008, PCRC, as you know, is a police community mediation panel that addressed community concerns about excessive use of force and other barriers to community trust in Minneapolis Police Department. I served as a voice for individuals in mental health crisis who were responded to by police officers when they were in crisis. I represented the Barbara Schneider Foundation, named for a woman who died in an officer-involved shooting in her Minneapolis home in June 2000. Chief Arredondo, Sergeant Arredondo at that time, actively participated in sometimes heated, in-depth discussions between community and MPD for those 5 years. That's where I got to know him. Many of the action items that were brought forth from the community included police use of force, mental fitness of officers, the role of police in out-of-home placement, diversifying the Minneapolis Police Department workforce, racism in the city of Minneapolis, and the impact of that racism on MPD officers. He knows every aspect of public safety. He's won the trust of many in the community and in the department that will allow him to continue to increase the professionalism and capability of MPD officers. He runs toward the problem, not from it, works to create solutions. I think we all know he's a true diplomat. He listens, he partners, he uplifts. And thanks to all of you for supporting him, Chief of Police. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is King Demetrius Pendleton.
Hello, I would like to thank everyone for allowing this space to happen. I would like to thank you also, Mr. Rondo. My name is King Demetrius, independent journalist, photographer. I'd like to say in 2013, I lost a daughter due to a drunk driver off of Highway 55 in Morgan. I'd like to bring attention about the distracted driving that's going on, not only just through North Minneapolis, but also Memorial Highway, by all the traffic that we are sustaining due to the stadium has been built and for them to have this new place being built. A lot of traffic is coming through here, and our children are being struck by cars, and no one is saying anything about that. 387 people was tragically killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 2016, we have 465 people tragically killed due to distracted driving. We talk about 40,000 people who OD off of heroin, but we never talk about the 120,000 people who has been impacted due to distracted driving. I would like to know what could you do in this matter? We're talking about distracted driving and drinking and driving and texting and driving. I'd like to see more laws. I'd like to see more speed strips out here, and I'd like to have some attention being put towards North Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shane Zahn.
Mr. Chair, members of this committee, I'm Shane Zahn with the Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District, Director of Safety Initiatives. I'm here to support the appointment of Acting Chief Arredondo or Rondo. I had fortunate experience of working with him as the inspector in 1st Precinct and as Deputy Chief. Some leadership qualities that I admire from Rondo is building trust and integrity with the community. He's engaged and he leads. He maximizes relationships. He's a great partner for supporting both public and private collaboration efforts in many initiatives that we do downtown and throughout the city. Demonstrating courage. Rondo doesn't walk away from situations. He's open to feedback, he listens, and he's open to criticism. I hope you take this opportunity and seriously consider appointing Rondo as our next police chief.
Thank you. And I'm going to make a kind of strange announcement just because I've been told. And we have a bunch of people in the hallway who want to come in to sign up. And so, for the folks who have spoken, if you want to hang out here, feel free to. But if you are done and, you're planning to leave, if you can do that, that would be helpful in terms of, having people come in. Our fire marshal is here and he's not letting anybody else in. And so, it's just much more of a courtesy thing with regards to letting more people who want to come in. Again, I am not forcing anybody out. I just want to do that just for the courtesy of the folks who are out there waiting to come and sign in to speak. So after every sheet that I have, I will just keep on saying that, but that's not, that I hope you guys don't interpret that as me being rude. I want to facilitate a process where people who want to speak can come in and sign up and be able to speak as well. So with that being said, number 11 on our list is Mike Quinn.
Thank you, Chairman Yang, council members. My name is Mike Quinn. I live at 4829 Vincent. I've been a lifelong citizen of Minneapolis, and I'm a retired Minneapolis police sergeant. I retired in 1999 after 50 years. I ran the police academy for 4 years. I either supervised the initial training, supervised the officers, or worked with the entire command staff, I think, at this point. And I'm here to support Rondo to be your next chief of police. I have been one of the most vocal critics of the Minneapolis Police Department as a retired officer. I wrote a book about it, Walking with the Devil, the Police Code of Silence, for which I received death threats from some officers on this police department. We are in need of a severe change in the police culture in this department, and I think Rondo is the man to lead that change. He's got leadership abilities, he's got the inner strength and the spirit that it's going to take to do that. I'm against bringing in somebody from the outside. There's a lot of talk about bringing in someone from the outside that can change the culture. I worked in internal affairs for 2.5 years for Tony Boza, and he was supposed to be that big change agent. And I can tell you, Tony Boza, as much as I like the man, held hardly any officer accountable for anything. His usual comment and a sustained complaint was, I can understand how that'll happen. We're going to not sustain this. We don't need somebody from the outside. We need somebody who understands what the real internal problems are, and I think Rondo does, and I think he'd be willing to make those changes. His first step with the body cameras, without consulting Bob Kroll, which I thought was a great move, was important. The following steps that he needs to make, the idea that we need to hold people accountable now when they don't turn on their cameras and really hold them accountable, is going to be a huge help. I live 2 blocks from where Justine was murdered. I've been very vocal critic, as I said, of the MPD, but we have a lot of great cops. It's a great department, and Rondo's only going to make it better. I wish him all the best.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to announce the next 3 speakers. If you can come in queue, that just makes it faster. So our next speaker is Lisa Clemens, followed by Chief Matt Clark, followed by Anthony Hines.
I'm sorry, but I'm losing my voice. I know some of y'all are glad of that, but that's okay.
Miss Clemens, are you trying to do that so you get more time?
Oh, and you see she's not here today. Okay, I've known Madeira Arredondo probably longer than anybody in here except for his family. When he came on the department, he was put on my shift in the 4th precinct. We not only rode together sometime, we followed each other on calls, we rode to work together, rode home together, and we talked a lot. We both lived in South Minneapolis, married, raised children, and we talked a lot about bridging the gap between the community and the police department, even back in the late 80s. So this is nothing new. Rondo has always been a man of integrity, honest, and a police community-oriented person. He's able to cross that great divide that many are not able to do. When I got promoted to sergeant, he was the first choice that I wanted to come and be part of my team to help me establish that team in the community because I know his work, I know his passion, I know his heart. Because he's a cop, a people cop. He recognizes that police are stronger with community and police working together in partnerships. He doesn't see us and them. And for a lot of people who have a problem with him being an officer, he's a black man first. So he recognizes what our African American men are going through when they have contacts with the police. So let's not forget that. I feel blessed to be part of this historical moment, but because this is the right man at the right time to bridge those gaps and change the department. There is no need to look outside when you already have them sitting in front of you.
Ms. Clemens, I'm amazed that you finished with so much time. Thank you. Chief Clark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. I'm Matt Clark, Chief at the University of Minnesota. I just want to go over some of my personal perspectives on Rondo, Chief Rondo, and support him on the nomination for Chief. First thing about Rondo that I want to talk about is his ability to not only say publicly what he thinks, but also privately. And you know when he says it publicly that he's also working on it privately. And that's a trait that you don't often see in government, but he is an individual that does that. He's very honest and ethical. Number two, he has a laser focus on community, always has had one. But he also has a laser focus on supporting the officers as well. You see it now he interacts with them. You see it now he's concerned about their welfare as well. And if you talk about a police leader, they have to have both. They have to be concerned for the community, but also for the officers. And finally, I've seen and talked to him about a lot of different perspectives in policing. Policing's changed over the many years, even recently. And what's important is he has a global perspective on policing, but he acts locally because he understands the local culture and traits. And in a police chief, I think all of those three are very important. And so I support him in his move to be the chief of the Minneapolis Police Department. And finally, from my personal and perspective, I want to say that partnerships is what Rondo is about. And I know from my position now, I really need a good police chief, like I need a good fire chief to work on things on and off campus that affect not only students and parents, but residents. And I know that Rondo is an excellent partner, but also his command staff and the sergeants and lieutenants and the officers we work with. They're great partners. I very much appreciate that. And I know that he would be a person to step in that role and continue that partnership. So thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Hines, and then next after Mr. Hines is Al Flowers, Ted Loke, and VJ Smith.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Anthony Hines. I am here as the president and representative of the Minnesota chapter of the National Black Police Officers Association. I had something written down, but I've known this individual for 25 plus years. I am honored and privileged to be in this place, this time, for this situation. Mayor Hodges touched on it, community. He is the community. I don't think there's been a chief here in the last 30 years that has been ingrained and rooted in the city of Minneapolis. It's time. And the council has an opportunity to see change at work, but again, with support. Rondo, I just want you to remember one thing you told me probably 1995, be respectful, professional, and we're nothing without the community we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Flowers.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and the rest of the committee, and to the mayor. I stand here and thank Mayor Hodges on this day. I'm excited, and I'm not excited for myself. I know somebody mentioned, I'm thankful for that consideration, but my point of view is that we can do something better, and not just for me, but for the kids out there that's struggling about the police and what the police do. This is an important choice here as an African American, and watching the gun violence that's plaguing the Black community and the African American community. Having a chief like Arredondo that know what we're talking about and can feel some of that pain. He said it when he was up here speaking, and so when I get up here and speak on saying this, you couldn't pick a better person in this city of Minneapolis. I don't care. You can come from St. Paul or Bloomington and Brooklyn Park and everywhere else and say what we need. But at this time in this city, he is the right choice. I know it, but the young people, I think we can get across to them that things can change. And with this leadership, I'm so proud to be standing here right now even and it ain't for me no more. I'm getting older, so it ain't about me. It's about our kids. What's coming up now? The kids coming up now, and for us to be able to explain, who he is, who Chief Arredondo will be, what we know about him, where he's been on the street for working on federal mediation for 5 years. I think as I've been living in this city over 30 years, this is one of my proud moments when I heard he was going to be the interim chief, and I knew that it should turn into chief because he's going to be a great chief for the city of Minneapolis, and I believe that in my heart, and I believe that for any young African American that's striving to go through what he's been through, suing the police department and all the things he's done, he will do great as a police chief. So I'm not going to take. I was going to take my sister time, but she since she couldn't talk, but I'm gonna let it go. But that's what I want to say. A strong endorsement for Chief Arredondo. It's the right time for Minneapolis, and he will make the change that I think we need. And he's been a part of it all the time. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ted Locke. After that, it's VJ Smith, and then John Turnipseed.
Hi, my name is Ted Locke. I live at 6145 15th Avenue South in Minneapolis, Mr. Quincy's ward. I'm the last house in Minneapolis. Across the street is Richfield. I'd like to read something from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that appeared on Monday. It describes a meeting held in the 13th Ward after the recent incident that occurred there. Let me just read this. The most striking question that night came from a woman who lives on Damon's block and declined to identify herself. If Minneapolis has the best police training program in the country, as city officials repeatedly say, then why did a relatively new cop, Mr. Noor, shoot an unarmed woman who had called for help? This is the guy that should be showing us that this is working. We're doing this new stuff and it's working, the woman said. And this is what happened. He immediately shot the first woman he saw when he was called to a rape. That's a question that this question was asked of Councilperson Palmisano, and she hesitated. Palmisano hesitated, holding a microphone, and then spoke. She said, "That's the question that I sit with every day," she said, "and I don't have an answer for it." I don't think this council has an answer for it. You haven't had an answer for it. You've had a lot of chances, not done a good job. I don't think the mayor has an answer for it. I'm hoping that the candidate, and I support the candidate, I'm hoping that the candidate finally.
Thank you very much, sir.
If you can wrap up.
Has an answer to it.
Thank you. VJ Smith.
Good afternoon, council members and Madam Mayor. How you doing? Yeah. I'm here to support Arredondo, not because he's a brother, but because he's what we need. Because he's got what it takes, because I believe in him, because I've been in the trenches with him. I don't care what you read about in the newspapers, what you heard on the radio, and about testimonies of what's happened in the past, what I've heard up on this microphone, but I do care about this individual that I know that will give us what we need. I'm ready to roll my sleeves up, so I'm not just here to testify and support, but I'm also here to say I'm ready to get my hands dirty, whatever it needs to deal with whatever negative energy comes your way. I'm going to be tweaking and twerking and Snapchatting and doing whatever I have to do to support you. I'm going to get behind you, and I'm not by myself. We got Team Arredondo in the house. Are we in the house? Team Arredondo's in the house, and so we're here to make sure that you're successful. And you can only be successful with us. So I'm proud of you. I thank you for all you've done. I thank you for your humbleness as a leader. I definitely believe that you, without a doubt, have been the right selection from our mayor. So thank you very much, and God bless you.
The next speaker is John Turnipseed, afterwards Todd Sherman, and after that is Rick Zimmerman.
John Turnipseed, I work at 4th Avenue and Lake Street, longtime Minneapolis resident. Now I live in Brooklyn Center. Thank you, Mayor. I'm really, thank you. You know, people sort of disregard that something had to happen for this to happen, and the mayor did it. Okay, one of the things that I hope people don't lose the fact of, he was police chief before he got here. He went through the fire just to get here, just for an honor that he should have been bestowed upon a while back. He's been through stuff that we can't even imagine and stuff, and because he's such a strong person and a good leader and stuff, he stood in the gap for us and waited his turn. You understand? He was vocal about it. He even sued the police department, which was a bold step, and didn't stand around your enemies. You understand? After you had won, and hold his head up and continue to do his job so that he would never be denied this opportunity. And we are going to be all the better for it. The last thing I want to say is, people keep saying, it's going to take more than one person. It's going to take nonsense. One person starts a spark. You understand? Committees do nothing but get in the way. One person starts a leadership spark. And if he's not that one person to start it, I don't know who he is. I support this man. I am so proud of him. And I'm just waiting for the rest of Minneapolis to see how great a leader he is, because I already know. Thank you, Chief Arredondo.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Todd Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Todd Sherman. I live at 5048 Vincent Avenue South. I live one block from the spot where Justine Damon was gunned down, and nearly 1 month later, our community has no answers as to how this tragedy happened and what is being done to prevent future killings across the city. I echo the sentiments of previous speakers that while I fully support Chief Arredondo's nomination, I implore the City Council and the Mayor to create an environment where bold new ideas for reforming the police department, particularly ideas from community groups across the city, can be heard and implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rick Zimmerman, and after Mr. Zimmerman, Ora Hoax, Philippe Cunningham, and Barry Vaughan.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, Ms. Mayor, other council members. I live at 110 West Grant in Lisa Goodman's ward, and the rest of my family live up in Barb Johnson's ward. So I know Minneapolis pretty well, and I know Chief Rondo pretty well. I've known him since he started on this job, and I'm a cop also, by the way. And, you know, I know that I've seen him in action with the public. I've seen him in community meetings, reaching out. He's a consensus builder. He'll listen to different factions throughout this city. And I'm sure y'all have had to do that. And you know that can be difficult. But Chief Rondo is excellent at it. And I expect that he's going to be a great chief with your help, Ms. Mayor. And he's going to change the things that need to be changed. He's going to look at them first. He's going to study the issue, and then he's going to make a decision. And I've seen him in action, and I like the way he does it in a thoughtful manner, in a precise manner, and he's excellent. And one final point that I think maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but you know, at the top of our state license, it doesn't say occupier, it doesn't say guard, it doesn't say a cop. What it says is peace officer, and that embodies what Chief Rondo is. He's a peace officer first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ora Hoax. And Ms. Hoax, I'm just going to do the same announcement, but please come on up. You know, For the speakers who have spoken, you're welcome to stay here, but if you want to leave, that would be helpful just because we have folks in the hallway that want to come in. And so just want to throw that out again. Again, try not to be rude, just letting people have their opportunity to come in, sign up, and all of that stuff. So, yes. And if the folks in the back want to come to these seats, please do so as well. But, again, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting. Ms. Hooks, please go ahead.
Okay. Hotep Chair Yang, council members, Mayor Hodges, and I want to say thank you for allowing us to have this moment. This is a historical occasion. I stand too in support of Assistant Chief Arredondo as a community elder and as a social justice advocate. I live at 1350 Russell Avenue North, Minneapolis, the 55411 zip code. So let that resonate. So I do know about the need to have someone who is going to serve in the leadership of the Minneapolis Police Department, who has the community trust, not only from our neighborhood, but in the city of Minneapolis. As a resident of North Minneapolis for over 40 years, I have watched Assistant Chief Arredondo grow up before he became a police officer. One of the things that we are lacking is trust. He is humble and he personifies servant leadership. I encourage you, and I'm saying to you, yes, you can, and yes, you must, after he is confirmed, because I believe he will be confirmed, to give him your utmost support so that we can put Minneapolis back in a position of honor again. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Philippe Cunningham. Afterwards, Barry Warnbrock. And after that, R.A. Edwards.
Mr. Chair, Madam Mayor, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Philippe Cunningham, and I'm a Northside resident. I am here today because I felt compelled to testify in favor of Acting Chief Arredondo because of my firsthand professional and personal experience with him. As a younger queer and Black trans man, I could have never imagined myself speaking in favor of a police officer with the amount of negative experiences I've had with officers in the past. But when I began working at City Hall a few years ago, I was forced to confront these emotions and challenges because the work I was leading required me to work across all departments, including the police department. And honestly, this was the most fortunate way that I was able to meet Acting Chief Arredondo. Nearly all of his work has been all of the innovative and justice-oriented work happening within the police department has been under him. He's been the one who's been leading it. But I'll be honest, I was hugely skeptical because I found it too hard to believe that an officer could be this committed to justice and a more just approach to policing. When I served as the chair of the City of Minneapolis' Trans Issues Work Group, I can say that Rondo attended and participated in every single meeting and even came to the Trans Equity Summit dressed sharp to the nines in a suit. His capacity to continuously show up and lead as a Black officer, navigating the inherently racist institution of policing while remaining centered in truth and justice shows a rare skill of resilience and commitment in the face of major systemic breakdowns. Some of the best qualities of Rondo's leadership are his compassion and humility, which are even more rare qualities to find and are signs of his strengths as a leader. If you actually support him into making actual changes, I believe his leadership will not only drive systemic changes in the police department and cultural changes within the rank and file, but scale up the healing and reconciliation work that he has been leading behind the scenes as well to begin building a relationship and trust between the community and police department. From my experience, Rondo is not only qualified with the experience and rare qualities and skills we need in a progressive-minded police chief, but he's also fundamentally a good man. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Warnbrock.
Good afternoon. My name is Barry Warnbrock. I live at 4717 Abbott Avenue South in Ward 13. I don't know the acting chief, but in looking into and talking with neighbors, I've heard good things. I've heard even better things here today, and I continue, therefore, in my thoughts as I came here to support his nomination for this position. I don't think it's enough, though. So I would say my support is provisional and conditional, not only on performance in that sense, but also in the council and the mayor's performance going forward. This, as others have said, is really a systemic issue we face. And so I'm looking for the acting chief, hopefully the chief, and the council to set some very clear, measurable objectives and talk to the city about performance. I'd suggest starting with transparency. For example, the body cam changes sound like a good start. And education. There are many people I know, children, youth, adults, who don't know how to interact in a proper way with the police when they're stopped. I think a change there would be an incredibly powerful thing. So educate us. People need to know, how do we interact when we're stopped or when we're interacting with the police? And then, frankly, I think as a city, we have a much broader challenge that the police department is only part of. So when the new mayor and council is seated next year, I encourage you, along with the city leadership and the chief of police, to set a vision and very clear goals for what community policing, public peace and safety should look like, and then move towards it. But I think that is something that's perhaps beyond this, but it's necessary. Otherwise, what's been happening in the last few years with citizens in other parts of the city as well as the region being killed will continue. Help make that change, please.
Thank you. R.A. Edwards.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Council President, Mayor, and members of the committee. I'm here to speak most definitely in support of Chief Arredondo. He has been a friend for many years. In fact, I remember him as a youngster going to Roosevelt High School. I well remember him coming onto this department. And so my support is there and will always be there. And I want to thank you, Chief Arredondo, for the past, currently, and for the future. But I would be remiss today if I did not indicate that you have some problems. And I would hate to see Chief Arredondo walk into a minefield. One of the items that has not been addressed in quite some time is the recruitment and the actual complement of law enforcement officers in the NPD of color. You've got a problem. You've got a serious problem. And so I make a recommendation to you. First of all, I'd invite you to view my program on MTN this coming Sunday. We have done a 22-minute investigation of misconduct and fraud as it pertains to human resources. I do not want to see this chief, this man, undermined and become, quote unquote, the source of attacks, maybe by even some of you on the council. I am most concerned with regards to a case that is now under investigation, dealing with a 30-year employee of the city of Minneapolis who was extricated from his office and from his job. 30 years. This man's name is Hassan. I would encourage you to examine the circumstances now existing in human resources, and I would encourage you to ask the city coordinator to conduct an immediate examination, which would include the seizing of hard drives, laptops, and etc., because y'all have a problem. And for the first time since 2004, we are on the verge of federal receivership.
Thank you. Our next three speakers, Dave Bicking, Joanne Kaufman, Michelle Gross.
Hi, I'm Dave Bicking, 4200 Cedar Avenue South in Minneapolis. I would echo the good things that so many people have said about Acting Chief Arredondo. He is clearly an excellent choice as acting chief. But this public hearing is not for choosing the acting chief, it's for choosing the new permanent chief. I would like to give my input on the choices that we have, but we have been presented with just one choice, and you can only vote on that choice. I have always thought that no political candidate should run unopposed even if I really like that candidate. The same applies here. I have sent you a letter with more than I can say in 2 minutes. To sum up, when any position becomes open, there should be a process for filling that position. Typically, that involves publicizing the opening and allowing applications from any qualified person, inside or outside the organization, who wishes to apply. For a position this important, there is usually the added step of convening a search committee and a process for evaluating multiple applicants. Oftentimes, the top 3 candidates are revealed to the public, and public input on all 3 is considered in making the choice. All of that is being bypassed here in a rushed process. You can only vote on the mayor's choice. But you do have one other choice, and that is not to take any action at this meeting so that a better process may prevail. Many members of the council wish for more involvement and influence over the police department. Please use the limited power that you do have. The acting chief and the mayor have already made many promises of greatly needed reforms in the police department. Hold them to those promises and give yourselves the time to determine if the acting chief is both willing and able to lead the department in a new direction. While the appointment of the chief is pending, you have the ability to not only influence direction, but to also learn more about the candidate by his actions as acting chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Kaufman.
Thank you, Chair Yang, committee members, Mayor Hodges. I'm here today as the Executive Director of the Warehouse District Business Association, as well as a citizen of Minneapolis, and we fully support the appointment of Rondo as Chief of Minneapolis Police Department. I live in the neighborhood where Justine Demond was murdered, and Rondo took the time the Monday afterwards, at a time that I know he was very busy, to speak to me at length on the telephone, because he knew I was getting calls from my neighbors who know I have a relationship with the police department. But that's not the first time that he's done that. He has always been an excellent partner with the community, both in the warehouse district and in where I live. And I'm hearing today throughout the city, and none of that is surprising. He is a true partner. He has deep roots in the community, which bring him a unique perspective to serve as I believe no one else can at this time. And we fully support him as Chief of Police.
Thank you. Michelle Gross. And after Ms. Gross, we have Abdi Riza Bihi, Clyde Bellacourt, and Imani Robla.
Move these down a little bit. My name is Michelle Gross, and I'm representing Communities United Against Police Brutality. Chair Yang, committee members, Mayor Hodges. Like the other speakers, I too wish to say wonderful things about Acting Chief Madera Arredondo. We have had a long-term collaborative partnership with him. He mentioned collaborative partnerships, and he's been quite good to work with. He's helped us with specific cases we've asked about. He's been an open door for us, and we appreciate those things, and we look forward to continuing to work with him in that manner. That said, though, this is a crucial time period that we're in. Wide swaths of the community no longer trust the police, and this is on top of a significant portion of the community who never trusted the police. We are in a very, very crucial time period, and what we need in this community, what we need in that position of police chief is a change agent. I am hoping that Madera Arredondo is that change agent. I feel he would be, but I want to really see it in action first. But however, you know, knowing that that the process is what it is, and I see that it's on our fast track, what I want to say is this: it's apparent to us that Madera Arredondo will, in fact, become the next chief, and I want it to be known that we will be holding his feet and your feet to the fire. We are looking for culture change. We are looking for increased accountability. We are looking for a real civilian oversight body that actually works. We are looking for peer intervention training. We are looking for all kinds of improved policies. The body camera policy changes that were made were a little bit of an improvement, but they didn't go far enough. So we're looking for more of those kinds of things. And again, we will be holding Chief Madera Arredondo's feet to the fire, and we will hold yours as well, because frankly, no one person could do that job. You folks have to back him up, and you have to give him the power he needs to really affect the kinds of culture change and policy change that we need in this city, and that's what we'll be looking for, and thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Behe.
Hello, my name is Abdulrazak Bihi. I live and do most of my work in Cedar Riverside. I met Chief Ardando a long time ago. Right after September 11, we had issues with the department, with some officers. We were also, it was Ardando and many other officers here who really helped us change our dealings with the department. I remember Ardando when he said that MPD is not like AT&T, which you can go to Sprint. So you are stuck with MPD. So you better work. Let's work together. And we did work together. And right now, the first meeting when we started in Cedar Riverside, every last Monday, decades ago, young people used to call me snitch by working with the police. And right now, 65% of our young people want to be police officers and work for MPD. I think I cannot say all the great things about Ardando. No matter where he works, he kept that relationship. And any officer from MPD is highly regarded in our community because of the work of Ardando and many other officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Clyde Bellacourt.
Oh, bonjour. You gone away with done indigenous cause of Sisak Today and the Shinabe of Kichida, Free Fire Society, gathered of the Sacred Pipe Sundance, the American Indian Movement. I want to thank you for this opportunity to say a few words in support of my good friend here, Rondo, who I've known for at least 25 years. I come here representing the Metropolitan Urban Indian Directors, which is every single Indian organization here in the city of Minneapolis. And now I'm also representing 7 Ojibwe tribes who have embassies and offices here to watch over their constituency living in a metropolitan area and the problems that they face every day. Ardando called me and apologized on behalf of the Minneapolis Police Department, saying that not all police are like those 2 officers that put 3 Indian people in the trunk of a car and drove them around town for 45 minutes, slamming on the brakes on the day that the Rodney King verdict came down in Los Angeles. 45 minutes. They claimed that it was only 8 minutes that they drove them down to Hennepin County, which was only 3 blocks away from when they picked them up. But through a subpoenaed police record, we found out they drove for 45 minutes around town, slamming the brakes on, along with all the riot gear that was in the trunk. And when they took them down to the hospital, the nurse that came out says, what is wrong with you? They were so cramped up, they had to bring stretchers and take him into the hospital. Said, you can't treat Native people like this. The 2 officers ripped open their shirts that day and they had a Los Angeles Police Department T-shirts under.
Thank you, Mr. Bellacourt.
You take care of them. And they wanted to then tell her to go see the police chief. This was over 14 years ago. She was scared to do that, but she called me. And I found out they took those 3 individuals, put one down in Hastings, one out at Medicine Lake, and one in Hennepin County, so we couldn't get them. I met with the police department.
Mr. Bellacourt, if you can wrap up.
President of the Minneapolis City Council. I'm going to ask you for a couple more minutes because I'm here representing the Native American community. I'm representing them. And I'm going to say what I have to say here because it's very important. You know, these people, red lives matter too. All right? And the original people, the original landlords and the original caretakers of this country, this whole country, we deserve the right to be treated like human beings. And Rondo told me that no matter what color your skin is, you deserve the right to be treated like a human being. But they made jokes of it. Why do Minneapolis police cars go faster than St. Paul police? Why? Because they got 2 extra engines in the trunk. That's the kind of mentality we have in the police. I'm not saying all of them because I sat on the Police Community Relations Council for 5 solid years. 5 solid years. And at the end of that, we didn't even get to complete our report. The police chief and the mayor, Ryback, would not give us an extension of this 6 solid weeks, 6 weeks to finish the work that we did. It was mandated by the United States Justice Department. It was mandated. We put in hundreds of hours on the police community, representing the gay, lesbian, transsexual community, black community, the Native community, the handicapped, the mentally health. Everybody was on that board. And Madero Arredondo believes that that should be completed. He has also taken a position to put people from that committee, including myself, on a police community relations safety team. And I hope that you will take the time not only to fully support Mr. Arredondo as our next police chief, because we believe he's the right man for it. I heard people talking about receivership here. Put that receivership in Arredondo's hands. Let him run with it. He knows what to do, and he'll bring us together. We want to get that committee going again and finish the report and the recommendations, because it will help everyone. It will help the city council, it will help the mayor, it would help everyone in this great city of ours, which we call home today, Native American people. Miigwech, thank you very much. I'm not going to read the statement. I gave it to you. You know what it says. Anybody in the audience, any of the media want to take the statement? You're welcome to it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
The voice of the original people, the landlords, and the caretakers. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the end of the month and the rent is due.
The next speaker is Imam Robla. After that, Omar Jamal. And after that, Ezra Hyland.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. First of all, thank you all members for the public safety, because the public safety and security is very important as a human being. Thank you so much, the mayor. You are good selected, good appointed. I always come today here. First of all, I live in 115 31st Street, apartment 705, South Minneapolis. Long time. We know very well, I'm coming today to support Rondo. We know up to 2001. Okay, we support it because he's have a good experience, good education, and good behavior. And also I believe he's know very well the importance of safety and security, and who is making education to the community to working together and helping together and making peace and security and safety together. This is very important. And also we support his have a good relationship for the communities. We know very well, long time. And also he's have understanding what they need for the communities every time. And thank you to support all of you. Also, God bless you. Thank you so much for the time. I look at the time. Okay. Salam alaikum.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Omar Jamal. Afterwards, Ezra Hyland. After that is Tammy Skinaway.
Thank you very much. And I came here today just to, I don't have much to say actually, but I'm here to support Rondo as the next police chief. I have in person worked with him in the Somali community issues, shootings, crisis, and he's been there all the time. And I was really amazed, and I don't even understand what this is all about. Actually, he's proven leadership, down to earth. I don't like politicians. I started hating them, and I've worked with Robert Olson, police chief here, William McManus, Tim Dolan, all those guys, Janae Harte, now Chief Rondo. And we have had our good times and terrible bad times. We've been really disappointed as an immigrants to this country, and this is a state. We've been lied because they said Minnesota is nice. Only after we discovered it was too late and we didn't know where to go back. But now I hope that the city understands the level and integrity and the value Rondo has been serving and putting his life on the line to serve and protect with kindness and courage and humility and everything. The city council, I've spoken here many times, I've seen new faces. You've always been the stewardship of the city, but I'll tell you, I'll leave you with this, that we as an immigrant in the community are disappointed. The city is we don't know what to say. Well, I think not only Minneapolis City, I'm really losing hope of the whole country, the federal level, state level. You know, the emperor has no clothes, and I think you can fix it. I don't know if you will, but we trust you. And this time, if you give Rondo a chance, like everybody else said, it's not only one man job. It takes a team to fix the city, and we need to work as a team to go out there and bring hope and stability and life back, so the city can come back again.
Could you wrap up?
Thank you, sir. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lord.
Our next speaker is Ezra Hyland. Afterwards, Tammy Skinaway, and afterwards, Lynn Johnson.
Thank you for this opportunity. I live at 37th and Sheridan in Councilman Johnson's ward. And one of the courses I teach at the University of Minnesota, a theme of that course is, can one person make a difference? And after almost 4 years working on the Police Community Engagement Committee, I had an opportunity to observe Rondo with officers, with community members, and I'm convinced he can make a difference. He has made a difference. Second, in this age of reality shows and Twitter, don't confuse his quiet, dignified leadership style with weakness. True strength is perseverance, and for a man of color to rise through the ranks in an institution that often has been hostile to people of color shows that he has the strength to make the changes that need to be made. I've had an opportunity to have him speak at a State Department program, European administrators, and I've seen him speak to international groups. But most importantly to me, he's a person I've been able to pick up the phone on occasion and say there's a young man who needs some help. And I reflect on one instance where a colleague called me, and I called Rondo, and he called her that day. And the person said, I can't believe it, the deputy or the assistant chief, I think at that time, called me that day. So I'm convinced he can make a difference, and I hope we don't fall into the Minnesota self-esteem kind of thing, where we think because he's from here, he's not good enough to work here. And just because somebody flew in on an airplane doesn't mean they brought anything good with them. Sometimes they bring a disease you're not ready for. And so I hope that we make the right choice, because anybody who questions his qualifications can only be questioning his color, because you can't do this for 25 plus years and rise to be assistant chief or a deputy chief and then say he's not qualified. What are you really trying to ask about? And so I just wanted to offer my support. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to support you. And I'm sure that our board will. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Tammy Skinaway.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak, Chairman, Council Chairman, Chairman, Council members, and Madam Mayor Hodges. Thank you. We're in the year 2017 right now. Minneapolis has a history, as every police department does in the city in America. If we were to look back, it's easy to see why perspectives are the way they are. I've worked in my community to try and better police relations. I've heard many officers' concerns and opinions. I've heard that officers want to build relationships but are denied these possibilities by their leaders, as this sometimes happens in communities. It's very important that we have leaders that we can trust. Police training, I believe, needs to be investigated. We need to find more holistic ways of going about business as from the past. I've spoken in front of the Department of Justice and have brought this up. I do believe in the mediation documentation that was brought about and worked on many, many years ago. So I do suggest that you investigate that and find out what that is. I also definitely suggest that everybody educate themselves on other people's cultures. Ignorance creates fear, fear creates dislike or hate, and which turns into violence. So please, I would love for the people, the state of Minnesota, everybody to educate themselves on other people's cultures. If you don't do that, we're gonna stay in the same cycle that we've been. I heard the same word, systemic change, systemic issues. It's 2017. I think it's time for a change, for us to come together as one. Thank you.
Could you?
And I am in support.
Could you introduce yourself and give us an address or give us where you are from?
My name is Tammy Skinaway. I am from South Minneapolis. I am a community leader, they say. So as far as an address, it's a long story.
Thank you.
Systemic change.
Thank you. All right, next speaker is Lynn Johnson. Afterwards, Peter Hayden. After that, Steve Belton.
Morning, Madam Chair, or Ms. Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I've lived in this community for almost 30 years. I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm here representing my viewpoint on selecting Rondo as our next chief of police for Minneapolis. I think the individual is of a high caliber, and that's what the city needs at this particular time. And I think that Rondo will be able to bring that forward in his leadership. Here's the one thing about Rondo. He's been around in a lot of different areas of the police department. So he's pretty well rounded as far as his knowledge. And he's going to be able to provide us with some great leadership that this city needs right now, that we're going through the transition. And we're coming up to a new transition that we're going to be going into. I am on a number of different committees here in the Cedar Riverside area. I co-chair on the Safety Committee. I am on the Court Watch in Minneapolis. I'm also on a number of other different committees around the city. And I believe that we need to have some strong leadership in the police department. And it's not only the leadership of the police department, but we need to have strong support from the city council to support whoever you select as that chief. That's one thing that we always have to keep in consideration. And if we don't take that in consideration, we're not going to have a good chief. You have to realize that it's your responsibility as a council member that we support the person that you select. What happens a lot of times is that you fail to support the person after they're selected and put into that position. I think it's extremely important that we keep that in the back of our mind. Okay. Thank you very much for my time, and I look forward to talking to anybody after this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hayden?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, you made a great selection. Chief Arredondo, Acting Chief Arredondo, is a friend of mine. But not only he, but his family. I know his Uncle Booker, and his auntie is the person at our church that does all the filming. He's rooted. And so I came here just to speak on two things. One, him being rooted in Minnesota, and the second part is looking at culture. We were talking one time, and we were talking about culture as it was new in the game. And the realization is that he said, culture is not a color. It's a way of life. And I thought it was esteemed that he said that simply because if you don't treat people by who they are, you get mixed up in where they're going. Turning Point, a Cultural Civic Service Center, 40 years old, has been a friend of the Chiefs for 40 years. And all those times we have done things that have rectified people because it wasn't a color, it was a culture. So when you look at Turning Point, you see a lot of different people, just as when you look at the job he's going to do. So in my final analysis is this: I'm here to support him. The young man coming behind me, Steve Belton from the Urban League, is going to support him. We have talked, except for a couple of people, have supported him. The issue is, don't leave him hanging. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Steve Belton. After Mr. Belton, it is, I believe it's Ferome Brown, Art Knight, Willie Dominguez.
Mr. Chairman, council members, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Stephen Belton, Chief Executive Officer of the Minneapolis Urban League. I want to thank the mayor for bringing about the occasion that we are gathered here today by this timely and overdue announcement. As a faith leader, it would be easy for me to just say amen to all the wonderful things that have been said, but you know you don't get by with just that. You're going to get the sermon, even though it'll be in under 2 minutes now. But I also would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that here it is 2017, and we are just now nominating or considering for the first time an African American to lead our police department. And while Rondo's race is a unique cultural context to this discussion, it is not the reason why you ought to vote to affirm him. The reason is in 3 words: he is certified, qualified, and bona fide. Let me talk about that for a minute. Certified meaning that he is guaranteed and reliable. He is somebody who is endorsed and is possessed of the credentials necessary to fulfill this position and to lead this department. He is certified. He's also a lifelong learner, somebody who's not committed to the status quo of what he knows now, but he goes to bed at night reading, gets up in the morning reading, trying to learn and to deepen his knowledge and his understanding of how to lead a police department. He is qualified, having the qualities, accomplishments, and experiences necessary and customary for this position. I would say the emphasis here is on necessary more so than customary, because as an African American leading this department, there's nothing customary about that. He will be a disruptor, but in a way that our department needs to be disrupted and that we have longed for positive disruption for a long time. And finally, he is bona fide, and that is that he has made, done, and presented in good faith. He is a person who represents exactly what he says he is. You will get in Rondo, oh my goodness, I have to know, he's a police chief we call Rondo, for crying out loud. Isn't that enough? He is the genuine article, and he is who he presents himself to be. And you will be proud of this decision if you make it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ferome Brown, and with Ferome Brown's name, right under there is Queen Kim. And so, yeah, both of you can speak at the same time. Do you want the 2 minutes or the 4 minutes?
Whatever you give me, Blum.
Yeah, give him 4 minutes, okay? All right.
Ferone Brown, community leader, and a lot of other stuff. But I'm here to support Rondo because of I've never had anybody from law enforcement check up on me, make sure I'm doing all right, make sure that everything is okay with the work that I do in the community. Call me with jokes. I'm really a serious person. It makes me smile. Helps me out with the work that I do. There's not a lot of law enforcement that's gonna call you and say, hey, Ferone, come over here. You know, I got an opportunity for you. I've never had that in my life. After I changed my life, it was like pulling teeth to try and show people that I'm doing the right thing. To have him and to be honored to endorse me, because I wouldn't even think I would be standing up here testifying. I hear a lot about a lot of different people coming up here. I feel like they're talking trash. They don't even know. What if we get somebody from out of town that's part of the old regime, their old regime? So they bring their old regime to Minnesota. We don't know nothing about that. So give them a chance. I support them. So, and that's under 4 minutes long.
Okay.
Mine's going to be very, very short. Thank you, Councilman and Mayor Hodges. I just want to say that a person who is able to reach across many community lines is the person that I feel safe with. And I wouldn't say that about very many people, but I just want to say thank you very much, sir. And he does return phone calls.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Art Knight.
Thank you. Good afternoon. First, my name is Art Knight. I'm a lieutenant on Minneapolis Police Department. I've been on the police department since 1992, and I remember being a rookie officer and having the opportunity to meet Chief Arredondo. And I just want to thank the mayor for an exceptional choice. But there's two things I want to talk about too. I want to talk about two perspectives. I want to talk about community perspective and also police perspective. I happen to live in Brooklyn Park, and I'm at my kid's game in Brooklyn Park, and someone said, wow, how do you feel about working in North Minneapolis? And I said, let me tell you one thing about every block. I said, I don't care what neighborhood in Minneapolis you go to. You can go to the most impoverished block there is. The vast majority of people in every neighborhood in Minneapolis are good folks. They want a decent place to raise their families, their kids. And then I want to flip this too with Minneapolis Police Department. The men and women on Minneapolis Police Department, vast majority, are great individuals. And again, we have this perspective, okay, certain people in this neighborhood are bad or these cops are bad. Again, the majority of every neighborhood, majority of people, decent folks, majority of cops, good folks. And with Chief Arredondo, I remember him at a roll call talking with police. And he said this to the police officers in the 4th precinct. He said, if you go out there and you do your job, I will support you 100%. And this is also what he said. But if you are out there violating people's rights and doing stuff you should not be doing, I will be the first person to put you underneath the jail. So that's the perspective you will get with Chief Arredondo. Thank you.
Thank you. Willie Dominguez. And the next speaker is Yusuf Abdurrahman.
Thank you, Chairman Blanc, council members, and Mayor, for this pick. I'm in support of Arredondo, but I'm going to talk about Arredondo, not the man in the uniform, but the man in the community. Many years ago, Northside had an organization called Centro Cultural Chicano. Back then, it used to be over there where La Creche is currently. And Arredondo came with another officer to introduce themselves to the Latino community. He was one of the first, but he didn't have a uniform on. He had plain clothes on. And I think he had just joined the police force at that time, but he came in plain clothes to introduce himself because he was a North Sider, first of all, but he was also, I believe, on the North Side precinct at the time. And the Latino community at that time were struggling through some things that were going on in our communities. And we needed some help through the police department. So Arredondo came about, we had a festival, I believe it was, and first time I ever see him do some salsa. He was dancing away out there, but he would also talk to the community about the issues that we had. This is a man that really played a big part in our community, in the Latino community, and that's why I stand in support of Arredondo today. This man is not only a police officer, he's a peace officer. He's a person that really loves people. And so we have this opportunity today, council members and mayor, to really put someone that was born in the city of Minneapolis, that knows the direction that this department should go into, and that has been working on the steps of becoming where he's at today. He just didn't fly in. He was there at every step. So we have to be proud of that, Minneapolis. We really do. We have a man here that is born and raised in our city that is going to be chief of our city. So again, let's make sure that he gets what he needs, but I will be in support. I'm sure my Latino community will be in support of you. Congratulations, my brother.
Thank you. Yusuf?
Oh, my name is Yusuf Abdurrahman. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the members, and the mayor. I'm the first Somali refugee that came to this state. I came in 1992, and I have seen the city change and how it's changed and all along. All my children are born here, North Minneapolis. I live 1827 LaSalle now, downtown. But I lived in North Minneapolis more than 15 years. I work with little kids, and every morning I see them traumatized. Some of them talk about police brutality, incarceration, poverty, things like that. I have teenagers myself, and I get tired about telling my teenagers when police comes, please be polite, say sir, show your hands. It shouldn't be that way. If the motto of the police department is peace officers to protect and to serve the community. Part of my family live in Scandinavia. I went to 2009, Oslo, Norway, and Sweden. The first question that people ask me is, are you from America? Yes. What's wrong with your police? That's the first question that people ask. Why are they so harsh? Why they use force? They see one teenager walking on the street or a woman, 20 police cars come. All the guns pull out, shout and traumatize, holding people's faces on the ground. I mean, I'm for systematic change. We shouldn't tell our own kids something that, or reveal something that they shouldn't hear about. They should be proud of police officers when they come to. And the police officers shouldn't be so harsh. They can be happy, nice, and do their job, at the same time. They shouldn't be so angry. Well, I don't know the acting police chief, but, I have heard a lot of good stuff and a lot of good information from the people. I support him, but I want a systematic change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jinmar Arredondo.
First, it's hard to encapsulate what this guy has been to the family in 2 minutes, but I'll go there.
Sir, if you can introduce yourself and your address, that'd be helpful.
Jamar Arredondo.
Sorry.
Yes, St. Louis Park. There's my cousin. And this guy has meant everything to the family, and we're proud to give him to the city, as he's already given himself to the city. And he's done so many things for me. We're the same age. He's a little bit older. Got a few months on me. but we went to school together, civics, 9th grade Central. I think he got an A. I may have gotten a C. I don't know. But, we competed against each other in football because they closed Central. I went to South, and he went to Roosevelt, Teddy's. And basically, we've been friends, and cousins, obviously. And there was a point 5 years ago when my brother was killed, Jason Youngmark, and he was the one that called in the morning. And he was professional, courteous, helped guide my family through this issue, and saw us through the other side. And he's also been there for my kids. When I said, hey, I can't deal with it, can you talk to him? And he's there. And he's professional, courteous, and if I would want a bigger brother, I like being a big brother myself, it would be you. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my list. Do we have any more on the list? All right. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak that has not had the chance to speak? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? All right, we are going to close this public hearing then. And, it's a little bit unusual, but I just wanted to say this. This is the appointment of the police chief, and I just wanted to recognize the folks in the audience that are from the Minneapolis Police Department. And for most of the folks that are in uniform, I will probably be able to name you, but probably not your rank. And so I want to start by just saying Officer Curtis is here, Inspector Winning is here, soon-to-be Inspector Baird is going to be here, but he's soon to be the inspector here. Outside of that, we saw Lieutenant Knight, Inspector Waite is here, Inspector Sullivan is here, Inspector or Deputy Chief Jose is here, and I believe that's Commander Chidle right back there. She's not in uniform, but thank you all for being here, and Lieutenant Fours is here as well, and this is a really bad joke, but one of our inspectors is not here, and I think she's the designated survivor. So, thank you all for being here. With the public hearing closed, I will move that we approve this recommendation favorable towards appointing Madera Arredondo as the police chief, and can we, does anybody want to add any comments to this? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Before I begin some minor remarks, I just want to correct one thing that a constituent said earlier. It's not the last house in Minneapolis, it's the first house in Minneapolis. Just wanted to make that clear. I would like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for moving this forward through this committee, and all the people who participated in the process of the public hearing, and especially Mayor Hodges for making this one of the easiest choices I've ever had to make on this council. I've had the pleasure, as many of you had, and if you added up everybody who spoke and had a personal experience with Rondo, it is amazing he is as young as he is, because the personal time he has spent with everybody, crafting a relationship, being in service, being present, adds up to more time than you could possibly be alive, sir. There are too many people that think that much of you and appreciate the participation in their lives to make Minneapolis stronger. So I wrote down several remarks as people were going through them, and many of them came to be just statements of character and values on yourself and how you represent the city of Minneapolis, which makes me particularly proud. But I think the one thing that I heard come up that I wrote down was, he is the catalyst for this change. And it's something we all seek. I think although many people spoke in favor of Rondo as the police chief, I think they were also speaking as a challenge to the Minneapolis City Council and to the mayor on how we can continue to move this ball forward. And we like to advance that football. And I appreciate being on this team with you and I look forward to having a relationship that continues to serve. I know we've worked together on livability issues, especially on Nicollet Mall, on homeless issues. He is available to every community I've ever seen represented in this city and every neighborhood, and has the respect of the police force. It has the respect of elected leaders. I can't wait to have this happen. I think it's time to have this happen, and looking forward to casting my vote in a matter of moments. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments from my colleagues? Councilmember Gordon?
I just wanted to comment briefly how delighted I am with this appointment as well. I spoke a little bit at the executive committee and wanted to acknowledge the historic moment I think that we're in the middle of right now, and my commitment to try to work with and support the incoming chief in making the kind of improvements and changes that we need to make. I really appreciate your desire to serve. I appreciated that you mentioned you were accountable to the police department, and the officers who serve our city, and the 400,000 residents. And I noticed that you didn't mention how you were accountable to the city council, but that's all right. We'll work on that. I count myself as one of those 400,000, so at least I've got, that percentage of influence. I also just wanted to acknowledge, since the time you've become acting chief or Rondo's become acting chief, I already see a passion and a desire and a commitment to the city shining through, and already things that I think you've probably been thinking about for a long time, watching many chiefs go by as your career is advancing, thinking about, I might want to do that if I ever had the opportunity, or I hope that I could do that. I might do that a little bit differently. I've got an idea how to improve there. And I appreciate seeing those ideas coming forward. I think we need a chief that's going to be very involved and engaged with the community, with policymakers, with everybody, and willing to take risks and take chances and try to do things a little bit differently. And I look forward to supporting you in those efforts and sharing with you more about my ideas about how we might be able to improve the city, and working with you along with all my colleagues to do this. I think that message was loud and clear from the public hearing. I also appreciate everybody who came in here and spoke, and also challenging the council and challenging me to take responsibility for this and where it goes from here. And I hope I can rise to that occasion as well.
Any? Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I, as well as Gordon and several other colleagues, were on the executive committee, and it was kind of heartening to hear the comments from today's public hearing. I think we all had a sensibility about the time we're in and the needs we have for the department, and the person who's stepping up to fill that very important role reflected in that meeting from our internal perspective. But today, there was a correspondence to our sentiments that was greatly expanded and greatly enriched by the leadership from our various communities that stepped up today. And as Councilmember Gordon just said, they stepped up to not only reinforce the importance of this moment and the quality that we have in the emerging chief, but the challenge to us, as Councilmember Gordon said, to work with this leadership, to work with this department, and do our parts to be accountable to that task as well. Clearly, the community has stepped up and is eager to do that work. I want to share in that work. So thank you, everyone who came today.
Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too spoke in executive committee, but I just want to say something about conversations that Chief Arredondo and I have had over the years about kind of the differences in the dynamics within neighborhoods in this city, and your appreciation for the challenges that some neighbors and neighborhoods feel in the differences in levels of public safety within those neighborhoods. And so, I'm going to continue to press on that. And I was really pleased to have a number of constituents here today from my ward just to talk about that very thing. And I know that because you have really broad experience across the department, some of the challenges that individual neighborhoods have, with regard to public safety. And so I look forward to working with you. And I again will say I'm delighted that you're willing to take this job on because it's one of the hardest jobs in this region. Thank you.
All right. Well, I get to close this with the comments. And, before I do, I want to acknowledge Officer White, who's here, Lieutenant Tilborg, who was here a little bit earlier, and Sergeant Eggy, who's here. And just want to name all the folks that are here just because I imagine, they're here because they support the appointment of the chief. I don't believe that they're here just to be in opposition by just standing there. So thank you all for being here. I have to tell you all, my first interaction or my first time seeing Rondo was, somewhere in early 2000 or so when he might have been a PIO, although he's been in so many different positions, I can't even keep track. But, I think, it speaks to how versatile he is, how good he is at each of those positions, that he has just been in every single one of those positions. People have talked about being a beat officer on the north side. He's been a SRO. He's been the director or the commander of internal affairs. He's been, just kind of a jack of all trades for everything. And, in some ways, I think sometimes when you're a jack of all trades, people think that you're not really good at, things. But I think Rondo has proven that he has been very good at different things. And, his last post before becoming the assistant chief was actually the chief of staff, the deputy chief, to Chief Harto. And, I have to tell you all that, he was fantastic at that, dealing with 14 bosses and doing it, with such smoothness and, such skill. That is a testament to him. And, outside of that, really, I just think that when we look at the new appointment, I think Mayor Hodges, I think it's a great choice. I really do. And I say that within the context of all of us, having an election that's coming up in the next 3 months, not really having the time or the attention to put into maybe doing this huge search. And, I think in some ways we could have done this huge search and in the end just ended up with Rondo anyway. So I think that, I think that's a great choice. And, I'm looking forward to this. I think people have talked about the history that is being made, and my goodness, I can't believe in 2017 we're still making history. But I think it's fantastic, and it's not history for the sake of history. It's history because we have somebody who is very qualified, who chose to stick with us and has stayed for so long with us. And so I'm just so happy about that. And, I think to summarize, a gentleman earlier just said 2 words that really just kind of speak to this whole thing. And his 2 words were, it's time. So with that, let's take a vote. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And so I just want to explain what will happen. In this situation, the Public Safety Committee makes a recommendation to the full council. The vote on the appointment is actually next Friday, and I believe that date is the 18th. Yep, the date is the 18th, and so that's when the full council will take this matter, and full council will make the vote. But, thank you so much to everyone for being here, and yes, with that, I think we are done with our business and we can adjourn. So thank you.